For many men, concerns about semen volume and overall bedroom performance are common, whether it's increasing the intensity of your orgasm or increasing the size of your loads. Check out healthgold.net. We have what you need to give you the confidence, staying power, and the increase in volume to make you feel like your favorite corn star in its prime. Because what's Riz without Jizz, right? Anyways, click on the link down in the description, healthgold.net. See you there. Thank you for tapping back in to Sofa Juice. And on today's episode, we will be going in depth about the career of one of the most iconic female porn stars who started in the early to mid 2000s and is still creating content today via modern day platforms such as OnlyFans, for example. A woman who carried the torch for the big butt actresses and racked up a plethora of male fans who have an affinity for big butts and the genre alike. Eventually, she even used her hustle and talents to build a legacy in front of the camera and behind it as well. Her entrepreneurial side is not really spoken about as much as her action in front of the camera. Nonetheless, both sides are done very well. This woman is no other than Cherokee D'Ass. Now let's go all the way back. Let's go back to the early 2000s where she started. And during this era, what was interesting is streaming was still in its infancy stages. Adult message boards were popping, and online blogs were not only used as a source for downloading content for many fans, but also used as a tool for upcoming porn stars to get exposure. So this is that blog era that we hear about. Often we hear about the blog era, pertaining to the music industry and upcoming artists at the time. But the blog era also was a time where we seen the rise of some really good talents, to name a few. And Cherokee D'Ass is one of them. Cherokee initially started off as a dancer and eventually segued into her first scene with adult male talent by the name of Johnny Depp. And the movie was called All That Had 14, which was released on West Coast Productions back in 2003. And although she started in 2003, she still was one of the driving forces in what I coined the third golden age of porn. So we had Cherokee D'Ass, we had Beauty Dior, we had Sky Black, we had Pinky, we had Roxy Reynolds. It was a lot of others as well during this era that was doing a lot of damage in the game. And, now 2015 and going forward is what I like to refer to as the dark ages of porn. And that's where we are right now. So who's to know, who's to say what comes after this? We have a lot of online content creators that are blowing up, making noise with the OnlyFans thing and things alike, But in terms of a fourth golden age, I don't know. We'll see what the future brings. Very interested. I'm on the edge of my seat, waiting to see what happens. Another reason this was a pivotal era was because this is the final era before BBLs and other enhancements took over the industry. In this modern OnlyFans era, having a BBL is the standard. What's not often mentioned are the dangers with these surgeries and enhancements. In fact, just yesterday, a newer content creator by the name of Miss John Doe tragically passed away as a result of a blood clot related complication as a result of her BBL surgery. And although I focus more on the golden age, I do recognize her line of work. And I know she worked with several new talents, such as Gucci Third Leg, which some people refer to as the hot boy. That's a whole other conversation for another day. I might be old, but I stay in tune with what's going on with the culture. But ultimately, she did some work online, and some of her scenes went viral, and it led to her building a name for herself among the newer generation of creators. In addition to Miss John Doe passing, we lost another adult entertainer as well. Victoria Beatriz from Brazil. I don't know if that name rings bells, but she did do a lot of work with Bang Bros and Brazzers, to my knowledge. And I don't know her cause of passing. Some say it was BBL related. Some say it was cardiovascular disease, and others say it was a self-inflicted unaliving. But nonetheless, my condolences go out to both of those girls. For the hard work ethic that they put into it. I commend them for the courage and bravery and the heart that they had to just step forward and just jump into this industry and leave their mark. So, I salute them. But getting back to the topic at hand, as far as big butts are concerned, big butts was always a thing in the corn industry. It always existed, but they weren't normalized, and they were more so seen as a novelty more than anything else. Back in the days during the first golden era of the industry, at that time, the slim, less curvy women were the standard, and actresses like Vanessa Del Rio and Ebony Eyes actually pushed the boundaries in the 80s adult films by showcasing their big rumps for the camera, and they actually became the early like the precursors for the 90s talents, such as the Persias and the Dominique Simones and many of the others who carried the baton, leading all the way up into the early to mid 2000s, where we see talents such as Cherokee D'Ass, holding it down for that whole genre. So it's real interesting to see, the transitions and how everything just moved along, and how it went from being this small niche to becoming, the norm. Actually, at this point, it's pretty much normalized. Now it's to the point where the slimmer women are actually looked at as being anomalies. You know what I mean? So we're starting to see things kind of swap out, in this era that we're in right now. So it's pretty interesting to watch the progress in terms of how that grew and developed from, 40, 50 years ago to now. Another contributing component to the popularization and normalization of big butts in the corn industry and in mainstream culture was the rapper Sir Mix-a-Lot's hit record, My Baby Got Back. A song that single-handedly challenged Western beauty standards and it shifted the cultural paradigm in terms of men's preference in a woman's physical features. And often this is like overlooked. People totally forget about this part of the whole shift, but this played a big role. This was a catalyst right here in changing the culture. And the impact also resonated so much that it can be felt in the corn industry directly. Hence the title of the classic series from the late great Christian Man's Company video team and Afrocentric Productions on their collaboration series called My Baby Got Back. And that often casted those big butt sisters such as the Dominique Simones and the Persias that I just mentioned, and many others, to name a few. It's interesting just to see how that played a role in it, but a lot of times we don't think about the impact that music has, on the corn industry. A lot of us don't think that connection between the two directly until after the late 90s, after the Jake Steeds and entering the Brian Pumper era and all that stuff. But really, there was always somewhat of a connection there between both worlds. Now, as far as Cherokee is concerned, she had a plethora of pivotal moments in front of the camera. And in several interviews, she did say that her favorite talent to work with was Justin Slayer. And if I'm not mistaken, she even did a scene for as well. I remember that. And a lot of her fans were shocked when that scene leaked through the internet and it made its rounds. But nonetheless, what stood out to me about Cherokee D'Ass is the fact that she's still in the industry, and she works with newer talents as well. I know she does a lot of directing and producing, and on the side she also exercises a strong business acumen. She's a hustler. Although you have a lot of other female corn stars that got into directing and producing, she actually has more diversity in terms of what she's doing. For example, she has her own line of male and female enhancement honeys and supplements and things like that. And she even transitioned into ventures outside of the corn industry, like managing hip hop artists. I think it was a guy, I think his name was The Icon, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if she's still managing him, but she was all hands on deck. So she's a straight up hustler, and that's one of the things that I can really look at her and say, like, she is the blueprint in a lot of ways. Also, back in like 2010, she had a collaboration project with Beauty Dior at one point for a site called thisisdiorandass.com. On a side note, Beauty Dior, yeah, she's another one who's still looking good in 2025, another living legend alongside Cherokee. Not to mention, Cherokee's body is all natural too. So it's like, ain't none of that BBL stuff, and that's why I said Cherokee is one of the driving forces in that final era before we got to this place where we are right now, this dark place in the industry, where we have tons of BBLs and enhancements, and it's like surrounded by plastic, surrounded by robots. With all that being said, it raises the question, who will carry the matrix of leadership for all the big butts at this point? We've seen it passed down from Vanessa Del Rio to Ebony Eyes to the women of the 90s, all the way down to Cherokee D'Ass. And who got next? I don't know. That's a good question, right? If I had to put my money on somebody, I would say Victoria Cakes, maybe Mother Phoenix, and Jim Jewel. Like, those are like the three runners ups that I could think of, that are like out there, that's putting that work in, that can carry the torch, the baton for Cherokee D'Ass at this point. But who knows what's going to happen? Only time will tell. And in conclusion, it raises the question, will big butt corn stars go back into the shadows? Will we see a resurgence in the old standard of women, who were the standard during the golden age of corn? Or will big butts remain the status quo? I ask that because there is a current trend running on social media known as the skinny girl era. In fact, hashtag skinny talk is a popular hashtag. Combine that with the fact that Ozempic use is at an all-time high, and some of your more popular socialites even undergone the removal of their enhancements, such as Black China, for example. And when we analyze these shifts, what they show is that there is a growing fixation on thinness, and this may possibly even manifest one day in the corn industry, regressing back to an older era at that time. I mean, history does repeat itself, but who knows? I mean, only time will tell. But, on that note, thank you for listening to Sofa Juice. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It's your boy Dion the Giant, signing off. See you next time.